Hey, welcome back. This is Dr. Chad Kish, introducing you to the final module for our PEP and EDU 417 course. It's module 15. Just like normal, get on the Canvas course, scroll down to module 15, and I'll walk you through this. We have our introduction. We'll have our video links page that has the video link to this presentation, as well as all the links to the documents you need, and two other short videos you should take a look at. The final assignment information page is also here. That was earlier in, I think, module 11. So it basically gives you all the information on the final assignment. It is due Tuesday of this week, so hopefully you've been working on that. You will then either do your final observation reflection paper if you had 10 or more hours of your observation completed by your midterm, and you've been made aware of that by email back in week 10. Or you will do your final assignment, which is submitting an additional creative lesson plan and video, and you'll do that through that assignment with the template by completing the template and inserting your hyperlink to your online video. Everybody will take the coaching quiz. All right, that's over the coaching unit. Watch this video first. It'll be over module 13, 14, and 15, your coaching introduction, purpose, and philosophy. Everybody will now do the philosophy development assignment. And this page right here links you to information on philosophy development. I'll come back to that. And then your philosophy statement assignment is right here. You'll develop a philosophy statement, a 1 to 2 page, and use all the information from module 13, 14, and 15 to help you with that statement. And then the last thing we'll do is your online course post-test, and it's identical to the pre-test. It's basically taking a quiz online. So you'll have 2 quizzes this week. One's due on Thursday, and one's due on Sunday. You'll have your philosophy statement, which is due this week on Sunday, and then your final assignments are due Tuesday. So let's go back up to our introduction, and I'll walk you through the introduction. The purpose of module 15 is to introduce you to the coaching philosophy information, including practice planning, developing team rules, parent communication, and program philosophy. We'll also take a look a little bit at recruiting and scouting, and a few other things such as developing some team culture. All right, students will develop a philosophy statement paper as a culminating activity and take a quiz for the coaching unit. Here's what we have. You'll have this, the final assignment, which is due Tuesday, which you've been made aware of that much earlier. The video lecture, which you're watching now. There's a variety of document links for important coaching information. If you think about coaching, make sure you download all these. I expect you to download them and look at them, save them on your USB drive. There's a coaching presentation quiz, a philosophy development assignment, and your course post-test. So here's the big ideas and objectives. We'll go over those in the presentation here. Make sure you read all the various information on the different links, and your reading materials are listed here. And then I will go through your assignments to make sure you're aware of all the due dates as well. Let's go ahead and move to the presentation. And we are on our part 3 of coaching athletics, which is building philosophy. This is either an individual or program philosophy. Last time we worked on our coaching purpose statement, and that should really lead where some of our philosophy goes. And as well as in your philosophy, I'm going to give you some background on some other things you'll do as a coach. All right. So coaching philosophy, I've read you your purpose of this, your to-do list here, your final assignment information page. Make sure you read through that. It was posted in module 11, as well as reposted in this module, and your final is due on Tuesday. Once again, you will either do the philosophy reflection paper if you were over halfway done, or you will do video presentation, an alternative one. All right, watch this video, read your document links, and then make sure you read the assignment information for the coaching philosophy assignment on that page before you open the assignment to do that. That's your to-do list. Here's your assignments for the week. Your final assignment, which is specifically designed for you based on how many observation hours you completed at the midterm. That's due Tuesday, 4/28. Make sure you get on that. Hopefully you already have it completed. The coaching presentation quiz, that's quiz questions from the 3 coaching presentations in Module 13, 14, and 15. That's a quiz on Canvas, and it is due on Thursday, April 30th. Your philosophy development assignment. I'll give you a little information on that. It's a 2-page paper. You'll complete that assignment in Canvas. All right, it is due on May 3rd, which is Sunday by 8 p.m. Please don't be late because we'll start leaking into time. I have to put finals up. If you're an EDU student, you can choose to do either the teaching or coaching philosophy. If you've already done, you should do one in 417P and the other in 417Q. So you can choose to do the teaching or coaching philosophy. If you've already done one, you need to do the opposite, and I will be checking on that. So you choose. If you're a PEP student, you need to do the coaching philosophy assignment. There is basically a link to the 2 different assignments and the format. Make sure you follow the format in the assignment for your specific assignment, and that needs to be well written, non-plagiarized, college level, with your own information, also connecting it to information from the last 3 modules. And then the last thing you can do is the course post test. That is due Sunday, May 3rd. If you don't have your philosophy assignment done and you want to do it right after you do your coaching presentation quiz, feel free, because there won't be any new information. But that's identical to the course pre-test. Complete that quiz on Canvas, and it is scored. All right, let's move into our presentation for this week. Here's our big ideas for coaching presentation number 3, philosophy. First, we'll talk about planning practices. How do you do that? What a practice plan looks like. Make sure you download and look at some different examples. I provided a basketball and a baseball example as well as a blank template in your links page. We'll talk about developing team rules, and we'll actually have an activity. You should do that activity along with the presentation. Write that down and save that for later. I just may have you upload that as an assignment. We will talk about developing good methods of parent communication. In that section, there are 2 external videos, about 2 minutes apiece, that I have YouTube links. I'll show them to you here, but in your video links package, roll down to the parent communication videos and watch those 2 videos. I think they're between 1 to 3 minutes each, so about 5 or 6 minutes total of viewing. We'll then work on developing team culture and how you build team culture around doing things with sportsmanship, character development, and really developing the whole person. I'll give you a little bit of information on scouting and some important parts of learning how to scout, which as you progress, when you get to about the junior varsity level and beyond, you'll have to start scouting, and that's a trade and a skill that you have to learn. I'll give you basic information on the recruiting process in case you get into the college coaching ranks. And then we'll stop or finalize our unit with developing a coaching philosophy, and I'll explain that assignment in detail one more time. So let's get started. First of all, we have our planning. If you downloaded the example basketball plan, you can follow along with this and have a little bit closer. If not, you might be able to zoom in on your screen. So we've all developed multiple lesson plans. So I'm going to consider here how you'll take the previous learning you have developing a practice lesson plan and how you would implement that into a lesson into this lesson practice plan. So we're going to talk about how your lesson plan can be used to develop a practice plan. I know I stumbled over that, sorry. All right, first of all, is there an objective? Is there an objective on your practice plan? Your practice plan, when you first start, you might write out on a piece of paper and you may not have an objective. I always like to have something that resembled an objective, and it's right here. I call that an emphasis. So the emphasis of the practice was communication and fundamentals. So basically I would have 2 objectives. You could connect those in your head to NASB standards, but in a team practice you generally wouldn't do that. Is there an aligned warm-up? Am I doing a warm-up to prepare my athletes for what we're going to do? If you look underneath my activity and drill, I start with a team meeting where I go over our expectations, safety, all kinds of different things, how we're going to break down practice. And then I start with pre-practice. So for me, my pre-practice is my warm-up routine. You'll see I have flexibility, jump rope, and warm-up routine. And then I move into more specific activities that are still a warm-up, but they're using our specific skills we're going to work on today. I have the 2-line passing drill and the 3-man weave drill. So those start warming me up directly for the activity I'm doing. I went from general to more specific. Is there time for individual skill development? Think of this as our closed practice setting. If there is, you're on the right set. That's where I always started out my practice. If you see, I have my post and perimeter workouts. So this would be a station where my post players, my forwards and centers would work out doing a different specific skills related to post moves. If you see, I have post moves listed and then 15-foot jumpers. And then my perimeter players, which are my point guards and wings, would work on some offensive skill, dribble moves, and Olympic-style shooting drill. So there is opportunity for individual skill development. When you plan a practice, start there, and generally, you want to do that to get your practice going with the flow, to get everybody warmed up, and most people want to focus on offense. So you can let them think you're focusing on offense right here to get some energy built into your practice. Is there time for group and team development? As you see in my practice plan, after we stopped to document our drink because we want people to stay hydrated, we broke it down into our segment of defense. I have all the different defensive drills listed here. For me, my program was built on our team defensive strategies. Could we actually defend the ball and stop the other team? I always felt in my basketball team, defense led to offense. So I put right there, after we got the team excited, we worked on some individual skills. When we broke down into our team skills, we started with defense first, because you want to play defense before your team gets tired, and then they'll generally pick it back up and get more motivated when you get into the offense segment. As you see here, I have my offensive segment, and in that segment, there's going to be time for group and team development as well as individual development, and we'll work on our offensive skills. And then later in practice, I did a couple of team-specific drills that were more competitive. And these were ideas where we would keep score, and there would be teams that won and lost. Winners would get some advantages, and losers would get some immediate, swift, quick consequences, maybe a down and back or some push-ups. We would close every section with some kind of question and answer. So that could be my assessment. My assessment also would be my visual observation all along here, because I'm assessing if these participants, who's doing what, because that's how I'm going to determine my playing time in the future. Is there a good sequence and flow? I believe this practice there is. You start with some cognitive learning. You let everybody know the objective. You move on to a warm-up. You get into your individual development and closed practice setting. You get to your open practice setting and teamwork. And then down here, you get to competition for a build-up game or team-type skill. I have a conclusion of what you're going to concentrate on, and I actually always ended practice with some kind of quote. All right, and then the coaches, if you see down here, see back, because I had assistant coaches, and they would look on what drill station they were going to be at. All right, are legal things detailed? I detailed my drink and I detailed my safety, so yes. Is there something to develop team culture? Always think about that in a practice plan. How are you developing team culture? And yeah, I have some different team drills, some quotes on our team meeting in this very first team to start working on team culture. So hopefully this gives you an example of a practice plan. And at this point, make sure you look at those documents. There's this practice plan. There's a detailed baseball practice plan to see a different sport, and a practice plan template that you can then adjust for your practice setting. Make sure you plan your practices effectively, have a good scope and sequence, and then reflect on your practice plan, because you're always going to plan more than you can get through. Remember, the players and the team and what's going on is more sacred than the plan. You're probably going to have to cut a couple things off your plan because you're not going to get to them. How do we develop team rules? It's important to have team rules. You don't want to overdevelop them and have so many team rules that everybody can't remember them. I really think in the team structure, you don't really need a exhaustive team handbook that has every situation, because to me, within a team, especially a smaller team, things are going to be situational. Are you going to treat the kid that's late the same, every kid that's late the same? Well, maybe. If it's their first offense, will you treat them different than their 10th offense? If it's a Saturday morning practice and they live 10 miles from school, is that different than an after-school practice where they're right there and can come from class? Is it different if a teacher held them over because they're getting help on academics? Is that why they're late? So everything I believe in a team is going to be situational, but you do need to have some team rules and expectations to explain what is important. All right. Your team rules should, like I said, explain what's important. Provide some very important rules. You might want to base these rules off your athletic department's rules as well as the MISHA or state association rules, the things that you really can't change, and make sure people understand those. If you can, inform of consequences for each rule. And what I like to do is if I put that in writing, I had a range. It could start out as this and lead to suspension. Don't overcomplicate or provide every situation. Like I said, if you kind of leave a range and let everybody know things are situational, but if you do that, you have to learn to fairly provide consequences and really let people understand why you're doing what you're doing. The next thing, after you develop your team rules, it's very important to inform participants and parents, especially if you're at a group where parents are important, elementary, recreational programs, as well as school programs, interscholastic. You should try to have a written and rule sheet and distribute it to both the parents and the participants. You might consider having your administration approve this, your athletic director or principal. You might even consider having the parents and athletes sign off at it that they understand the rules. I would actually distribute this as a contract. This is your contract to be part of the team. It's your first contract. People get excited when they hear contract. We made a big deal about it, like somebody would be signing a free agent deal in the NBA or NFL or WNBA. All right, that should be very simple. It should be no more than a front and back of a page. If you overcomplicate your rules, you're going to have too much information. You want to leave some things up to, like I said, being a little bit situational. Why do you have them? First of all, you have to inform people of the big things, the rules they have to follow that you can't change from the state association, your conference, or your school, but they help you develop consistency. If you have a few things down on paper, 5 to 10 team rules, your golden rules, then people are going to understand the expectations just like you would if you were distributing a syllabus for class or setting classroom expectations or rules. You might even want to label these as team expectations. The last thing, you can use them as a legal or supporting document for decision making. If you have some of the things on paper that you know you can't change, it's a lot easier to support your decision with some team rules that you've already developed and distributed. So do this journal activity. And like I said, I may actually allow you to turn this in. And you know what? As we go, I'm thinking about it. I'm going to provide an extra credit opportunity for your journal activity team rules. So if you can go along and do this activity, you can post it in module 15 for extra credit. So think about some team rules. List a sport you would like to coach. So get a sheet of paper out, put down A, the sport you would like to coach or plan on coaching or think you're going to coach. And then write down the level for me. Is it a youth recreational team? Is it a freshman or JV level? Is it a high school varsity level? Or is it going to be a college level? So write down that level for B. So A and B are pretty simple. I want to coach volleyball, and I think I'm probably going to start out at the middle school level. So there's your A and B. So for C, I want you to think, what are 5 important team rules you would have? What I want you to do is list rule 1 through 5. After you think about it and write it down, put them in importance order, 1 through 5. And then list a range or the possible consequences for breaking each rule under that rule. So I'm going to have you do a little bit of research and thought. If you were coaching a team, what are some rules that are really, really important? They might be as simple as always be on time, all right? or they might be more detailed and look up the Missouri State High School Activities Association eligibility rules, and you might use a couple of those in there. It might be have it all assignments turned in. So that's going to be up to you, but provide 5 important team rules. Here's some tips on developing rules. If you develop 5 team rules, consider what's the most important to you and your program, and those should be what your 5 rules outline. Don't overcomplicate or provide every situation. Have your important rules only. And then consider if you were getting this approved by a principal or athletic director, do you think they would approve that? All right, so I will provide a portal to turn this in for extra credit, and I'm really just going to put extra credit assignment, and you'll have to watch this video to understand what the assignment is. All right, so if you need to come back and look at this video, you can do it, but type up 5 team rules, follow the ABC format, and then under each rule 1 through 5 on C, give me a list of consequences. So here's a couple examples of team rules I have. This is a front and back. When I coached basketball at Mineral Area College, we developed this. The back side, since we were the Cardinals, we said that we made an acronym, the Cardinal Rules, and we followed those. But if you look here, our number 1 rule was be a student. All right, we talked about different things for academics and things you had to do. All right, and then next was real important. Our students lived off campus, lived in the dorms, so we talked about the consumption of drugs and alcohol. Then next, we really thought that people that steal from each other, families don't steal. We did not have locks or doors on our lockers in our locker room, so we didn't want people to steal from each other. And then we just went down through, we actually had 7 rules. Some of them were just a little bit minor to make sure people understood our expectations living in the community. So this document right here of the Cardinal Team Rules is one document. It's a front and back, and it is listed under the links section. So I would ask you to download that, look at it, and then consider you could use that to give you some ideas in doing your extra credit assignment. All right, we're going to talk about parent communication next, and there are 2 video links. The first one is Conversation in the Hallway. If you want to stop this video now and go and look at those real quick, those 2 little video links, they fall into this section. But this is the actual one called My Coach Sucks. So watch that video. It's about 2 minutes long, and then you can start visualizing where we go with our parent communication. Because anybody that doesn't have a good experience, isn't playing, isn't the star, could have that whole My Coach Sucks theory in their head. So here's some important background on parent communication. First of all, it's important to have positive and regular parent communication. If you don't set it up front and be able to open the communication channel, it will open on you when you don't want it to due to some kind of problem, and you will have no background experience or relationship to rely on. So I always like to have a team meeting before the season. And in this team meeting, I would provide my important team rules. I have about 5 to 7 team rules. I would set my expectations for the players, that they showed up on time and gave me effort and respected the equipment and represented our school and community and their family with pride. And then I would give parent expectations. It's your obligation to get your son or daughter here on time, to get them to this community service project, and to take part in this fundraiser. That helps us develop a positive initial relationship. All right, what I also did in that meeting is we would then go and have a practice scenario, and I would show them some of the different drills we do, and as well as explain some offense and defense. I usually had an official come in and would go over with the team and parents any rule changes. And then we would have just kind of a basic scrimmage, and I would show them my plays. And then I would talk to them about the 5 or 6 things that I really needed their help with on coaching. And it was some general comments like, get back on defense, or get your head up next play. We use the term next play all the time when something bad happens, so to get people to frame what they were doing next. Or don't worry, defense always travels, when we were on the road and we were having a bad shooting night, just to play defense. So I gave them a couple of cues, and some of the parents This was how you can help coach the team. And a lot of the parents really got on the bandwagon, and instead of yelling at the officials or saying some negative things, we talked about, you would hear them from the sideline yelling, "Get back on defense." So it was a good experience once I put that, implemented that practice in my preseason meeting. So the other things you want to do to open up your parent communication portal in a positive way is when you inform your parents of their expectations, try to have them written. Like I said, a front and back of a page is more than enough. Have them distributed. Make sure your administration, if you're at a school's, approve that, because now it's going to be on writing and you're going to have handed it out to community members. And then, like I said, consider having parents and athletes go ahead and sign that, so that way they just feel a little more accountable. Even though it doesn't hold up really, it just like waivers. Waivers don't generally or always hold up in a court of law, but most people think they do. So once they've signed on something, they go ahead and go with it. The last point here is, if you have positive communication early with a parent meeting, try to build a relationship, you really try to provide a positive outcome up front, because you can rely on that relationship. So in this initial meeting, talk about when and where communication is appropriate. It helps you avoid out-of-place confrontations in the future. I always had a rule: I would not talk to parents about the outcome of a game or playing time or anything that seemed like it was a confrontation before or after a game or in public. I would always have those meetings with both the parent and the student participant, because usually there was some communication breakdown between myself and the parent. Usually the student would say, "Coach isn't playing me," and wouldn't say why, and then the parent comes in and you explain that they missed 4 practices because they decided to go out with their friends, and then all of a sudden the whole communication's different. So having everybody involved really helps provide a positive outcome. A couple things you have to remember: you can't talk about any other student, all right, legally. You just talk about their student. I never really talked about playing time, why I made playing time decisions. I would just say playing time is a coaching decision based on a lot of different things. But I would give them, as well as their participant in the room, some ideas that they could earn more playing time. Because there's always some hustle, some extra practice time, improving their grades, being a better teammate, whatever the case may be. So here's a little bit more information. A parent letter is always a good communication method. You can send out pre-game guidelines, game guidelines, and post-game guidelines. This is where you can tell your parents what to expect before a game, during the game, your expectations of them, that the student pays attention to the team, not them in the stands, that they shouldn't be a half hour before the game up through game time, to refrain from trying to text their student. Because kids, hey, if mom and dad's going to text me, I got to text them back. So it allows them to put their phone down and focus. And then post-game guidelines. When do you want students there before the game? How do you want parents to pick them up after the game? What happens if there's an emergency situation? You should go over all those things probably in your team meeting, and a brief parent letter is good to send that out too. Here again, just a recap of the preseason parent meeting. Distribute your rules, information, and I like to send out practice schedule, at least for the next week or two, as well as game schedules if they're done. And I always was organized enough to have our tentative departure time and a tentative return time that I expected parents to be there to pick up their students. It's a little bit easier in today's day and age, when about 20 minutes away or however far away from school when you're returning from a game, that students can text their parents. This is an area too in the preseason parent meeting where it's important to define your core values and your definition of success. So if you look at your purpose statement assignment last week, your part A, you can really talk about your part A in this meeting: how you define success, what's important to you, why you got into coaching. And then next, you can explain your personal purpose in coaching, and I would have all of the coaches, if you have a coaching staff, get up and explain that, and ensure that at this point you relay what you're trying to do. You're trying to develop culture, build students for a successful future, teach them character and ethics, and inspire and motivate them. And you need to stay away from the comments about winning and losing and obtaining college scholarships at this point. If you keep that stuff out of the conversation and a parent brings it up, you just have to go back to that's not our purpose or our core values. Those are things that happen because we meet our purpose and core values. And then you can discuss practice and game videos. You might even show a practice or game video to your group of parents, maybe a highlight video from the year before. And then you might even see if you need parent volunteers to help you do different things. At this point, I printed out my parent communication ladder, which was basically a one-page of what to expect. The athlete needs to talk to the coach first, then the parent and athlete can talk to the coach, then the parent, athlete, and coach can go to the athletic director. That's usually something approved within the athletic department, so make sure see that that's approved. Your athletic director will more than likely provide you with that. But follow that communication ladder. You can't break it either. If after a game a parent starts yelling at you, if you yell back, you've engaged. So make sure you don't just say, hey, we'll have to set up a meeting. So I explain that up front. And then it just helps provide appropriate communication expectations for the season. The next part, I don't know if you've already watched it or not, I have a YouTube link to about a 2-minute video of a parent meeting example. And this is My Son Should Play More. So go ahead and watch that video too, and that'll give you an example of what a coaching meeting without a purpose ends up. So that link is also on our video link page. Next, let's talk about developing team culture. Team culture is the whole culture, climate, philosophy, the feel of your team. It's what you know, what your participants should be getting throughout the program, and it's also what the community sees from your team. So team culture requires planning and development. You should use your purpose and the philosophy statement that you're going to write for this to kind of develop your whole idea of team culture. You're going to provide a variety of activities at this point, all right, and that'll help you develop your team culture. So I'll go over some possible activities a little bit later in this presentation to help you determine if you're doing character building, you're doing service learning, what's your main aspect of what you're going to get to. So I believe personally that team culture requires some kind of character building. If you're going to have a team, it's your job as a coach to be a mentor. So I got to the point in my career where I would have to tell myself, hey, I'm not just a coach, I'm the mentor. And I would even introduce myself. Hey, my name's Chad Kish. I'm the head mentor of the basketball team. And people would look at you a little bit different. Oh, you're in a different role. You're not just yelling X's and O's. You're developing young people. So as an athletic director, I put those titles on people, especially when I saw them considering the sport more than the individual. So remember, you serve as a mentor. A coach is important, but a mentor is even a bigger difference in a young person's life. The next thing here, plan activities to develop character. You can't just expect character. You have to import it to be able to export it. So what does that mean? If I want people to learn how to have better character or sportsmanship, I need to do activities to develop that, such as role play. We've done some different role plays in class on how you can learn to develop character. Here's one thing I used to do. Quick activity. I would be doing a rebounding activity that required some physical contact in basketball, and I would pull one of my players, my star player in, or maybe somebody that wasn't a star if I wanted to build some leadership, and I would say, hey, in this drill, when I give you the double wink with my left eye, I want you to push somebody in the back, and we'll see what happens. But don't worry about it. They're not going to come back swinging at you because I'm going to be right there to be in the middle. Now, you have to make sure that your administration is okay to actually do this. So the first thing I would do then is we'd be in a drill, and I would stop and talk and role play about what you should do if you get pushed in the back. That the referee doesn't always see the first thing, but they generally see the second thing if there's some kind of conflict. So if you turn around and push somebody even though you got pushed in the back, it'll either be a double technical or you will get the technical foul. The first person probably won't. So we discuss that and talk about what you should do. So then about 2 minutes later in the drill, I give the double wink to my player. I pull aside. They push their teammate in the back, and they turn around, and if they walk away like they're supposed to over to the bench, I spotlight it, tell them that's exactly what we mean. If they turn around and act like they're going to get physical, I blow the whistle and get in the middle and say, hey, wait. This was a role play. I had this person push you to see if we would react the way we just taught you to 5 minutes ago. So then the rest of the year, everybody was always scared if something went silly, that is this role play or not. So we really eliminated a lot of our conflict with that specific activity. All right. The last thing on this slide is, what are important concepts you plan to teach? So think about it. What do you expect? Did you tell your team you expected? What are your personal core values that you want to teach? Write them down: character, sportsmanship, community service. And then think about how you're going to teach that within your program. How are you going to teach your team to have character? What are you going to do to develop sportsmanship? You can't just be expected, you have to develop it. And then what kind of community service projects are you going to give to help people understand that the team is not the biggest thing in town, the program and the community is. All right. So in developing team culture, if you download the document Playing Hard Is, over a year, we were actually just writing down on the board what playing hard was at different times. We had a dry erase board in our locker room, and we would erase it. And then one day, we just started writing down what playing hard was, because we really wanted to emphasize effort. And I took a picture, and at the time on my cell phone, the old flip phone back in the day, and we started then just a list, and we added to the list. So last coaching position I had at Lamar in Texas, this is a list of what playing hard actually meant. And that doesn't always mean diving on the floor, because sometimes there is false hustle. People do things to make everybody think they hustle because that's what the crowd cheers for. But it's setting a solid screen, all right? Is it taking a charge? Is it getting to help side? Is it staying in a good stance throughout the shot clock? So these were things that we developed that playing hard was, and we would explain these 3 or 4 a day to our team as we were trying to develop our character, because our team culture was that we came to work and we were going to play harder than any other team out there. They might be better than us, but we were going to give more effort and play harder and then deserve to win. All right, so we would actually grade our practices on how good the practice was, and there was always a big segment on, did we play hard? So that was part of our team culture. You can download this document in the document link page. The next thing is, we want to do talk about the negatives. Anytime somebody did something that was an excuse, we wanted to explain that there are excuses, but excuses stop results. So our team motto one year was no excuses, just results. So anytime somebody came in and had an excuse for something that they couldn't do, something we asked them to do as a team, we wrote it on the excuse board and we actually put their name next to it. All right. And that's the one board you didn't want to be on in our locker room. Everybody wants to be on the bulletin board with their name of scoring 20 points or having 10 rebounds or on the honor roll board. But we had an excuse board that was in the locker room where only our team saw. So here were some excuses. Alarm didn't go off. I was sore. I got personal problems. I didn't eat today. My phone was broke. I ran out of minutes. I didn't understand what was going on. I was sick. I didn't have a ride. I forgot my shoes, coach. So here's a lot of the excuses. Once we started that and we got to excuse 4 or 5, it really shined a light on our team and what was and wasn't expected. And then our team got to, hey man, no excuses, just results. Just get it done. Find a way to get it done. So that was our whole team culture, was no excuses, just results. So yes, there are reasons you don't get things done, but there shouldn't be excuses. You should find a way to get around that. So let's talk about a couple specific activities for culture building. Coach, you talk about culture a lot and building team culture. What's that mean? Here are a few ways, and I actually gave a presentation on these at the National Interscholastic Athletic Administrators State Conference in Missouri, as well as a few years ago I presented this at the Mo Shape, and I just boiled this down to give you a few of the character building activities. First of all, I wanted to teach senior leadership. So we had an idea of if you wanted to be a captain, all right, and you had to be a junior or senior, and you applied. We had a captain's program where you filled out an application, and then there were the expectations of a captain that they serve the team. They were going to get the water. They were going to get things on and off the bus. They were going to ensure the locker room was clean. So our captains, which generally ended up being juniors and seniors, or we made that distinction, they serve the team instead of having rookies or freshmen always doing things, or the people on the end of the bench. The star players then serve the team, and that way the other players, role players, would get to work on their game, all right, and see that everybody was equal on the team, all right. Another thing is having game host. I would have one of my captains or a team leader serve as a game host. That meant anytime somebody came to play in an away game at our place, so we were having the home game, we invited them in just like we would do coming to the house. So this is leader serves as a game host. So the first thing anybody sees when they come to your place generally is a scoreboard. In the scoreboard, there's home and guest. So this is how I explained it to the team. We're home, they're our guest. We got to treat them like a guest. When a guest comes to your house, what do? You meet them at the door. You open the door. After you open the door, you welcome them generally. You invite them in. You tell them where the restroom is. You don't want them to sit in your favorite chair, so you tell them where their chair is. That's basically you're telling them where their bench is. All right? And then you tell them, thanks for coming over, and we look forward to competing against you today. And then you go along your way. You do that with your visiting teams as well as your officials with one of your leaders, and it really changes the whole culture of your team, and the identity of your community starts to skyrocket. All right? Example number 3 here is stop and recognize character. Anytime when you're teaching character, you teach it, you model it, you role model it, you may go through some kind of role play. If there's a moment of greatness, somebody does something above and beyond, somebody does something with great sportsmanship, they help somebody up, they show commitment to the team or some kind of excellent character, stop and recognize it immediately. All right? How did I recognize that immediately? We had different awards that we would give. I actually, as a coach and athletic director, did different sportsmanship moments, such as milkshakes for handshakes before the game, or awarding sportsmanship awards throughout the game at different weeks of the season. A character award, you might hear this at different places, a lunch pail award, a golden ball, the golden spikes. We would have, at team level, we had different things where we would say what good character was, and then at the end of the year or the end of the month or the end of the week, however you wanted to do this, somebody would get that golden ball or lunch pail and get to put their name on it, and it would then eventually go back into your team trophy case or in the office that everybody saw. So people took pride in trying to earn that character award. Another thing I always like to do is end practice with a moment of character. All right. I started this coach-led and then went to team leading. So at the end of practice, I get the team together and talk about something somebody did above and beyond, whether it was in the classroom, in the community. They helped a teammate. They did something extra hustle-wise or sportsmanship during the practice or during yesterday's team. And I would start out by doing that a couple days. I would have the assistants then jump in. And then I would ask the team, did anybody notice anybody on their team doing something great? Can you recognize somebody else? And it got to by the end of the year, my team had to do it. And really, it got them talking about all the positive things that was going on outside the team. And it let us in practice, whether it was a good or bad practice, thinking of people besides ourselves. Another thing is bench culture. I have a video on that. If you ever want to see that, I'll post the video. It's by Becky Burley, who's the soccer coach at University of Florida. And she videotaped her bench during their first couple of games, and they would show teams clips of the bench. So if people were getting up and cheering for their teammates, that was moments of greatness. You would spotlight those. Then if people came out of the game and were upset, would go kick a water bottle or sit at the end of the bench or dismiss a coach or teammate that's trying to have a conversation with them, you would show them that character. It helps people understand what happens in the moment and to see how that other people see them. So that was a great teaching moment on bench culture. Another thing is I always started with my pregame and postgame speeches, and then I would relinquish some control of that to my players as the season went on. I would like to develop leaders within my team. I might have them give hey, what do you think went wrong or what do you think went right? Talk to the team, and that might even be somebody that wasn't a player that was on the bench most of the game that has some good leadership and cognitive skills. And sometimes peers want to hear from their own peers. They get tired of hearing from coach. So that's a good activity to develop communication skills, leadership skills, and may just help motivate your team to be even better when they see things from a peer level. Another thing, always did service learning with every team I ever had. This could be something as simple as a neighborhood leaf rake, volunteering with the Special Olympics, doing something such as a school environment project. At one school, we were in a neighborhood, and every time we came back from a game, when we would get off the bus before you could go to the car, we would walk down the street that we bordered, where our parking lot was, and pick up all the trash that the students or maybe even our team or ourselves, whether it was a soda can or trash, and pick that up. And it really noticed the neighborhood saw that, and then we were able to open communication with them, hand them some schedules, and get them to start attending our games. So that's a good idea for service learning that also helps your team. And another thing I'll go over in a class sometime, in another class next semester, you could do a letter of validation. So look up, Google lollipop moment, not lollipop by Lil Wayne, but lollipop moment. It's a TED talk, and watch that video and think about that for a few minutes. I challenge you to do a letter of validation with your team tied to this lollipop moment, and I'll give you a brief idea. What I did is brought the team in. I showed them that TED talk. It's about 8 minutes. It's about an individual who somebody came up to them and thanked them for something that they didn't even ever realize that they did. The guy then said, man, I felt really good. I wonder if, like, he was real motivated to do things. He was like, I wonder if the world worked this way, if people said thanks and showed a moment of gratitude for things that other people just do. Maybe the whole culture would change. So at the school then, I would have my team write something to thank somebody at school outside of their team, whether it's a teacher or a peer or the cafeteria lady or their bus driver, a letter of thanks, and then we would deliver that with a ticket to our next home game. Man, you should have seen the whole culture and climate of the school change on a dime, and everybody just got behind that. So it became an annual activity, and the teachers took a lot of pride in getting that ticket and being able to come to the game and receive that letter of validation from the students. A lot of times teachers were like, man, I didn't even know that kid was ever listening to me. So that's an excellent activity to do. If you ever want to do that with the team, get with me. I can share that video with you. All right, let's briefly talk about scouting opponents. If you're going to move up the ladder into college, or you want to work at the JV or varsity level, you're going to need to know how to scout different opponents, especially if you're at a team sport such as basketball or football is critical. And then when you get to some other team sports, soccer, volleyball, things like that, you need to know what the other team tries to do. So first of all, in a scouting report, you would provide information on opponents. I like to start by describing their personnel if somebody has specific strengths or weaknesses. I then would detail the team's offensive and defensive concepts so we knew what to prepare for. They might run a different offense or a different defensive concept than you see normally, so it's hard to sometimes just pick it up on the fly. You can put in different plays or different ways to beat those concepts. That's the chess game I like to play as a coach. You might then walk your team through one of their favorite plays, their inbound play, a play they happen to run for their star player, and then show them how you want them to defend it. It may include actually a scouting report at the college level. I gave out my team a paper report. It was about 4 pages and showed video clips of the next upcoming opponent about 2 days in advance. All right. You use this information to make game plans. Sometime if you overload your team with information, I would always have a lot more information for our coaching staff than we gave to the team. But you'll make your game plan based on your scouting report. So if you fail to scout, you're failing to plan and you're failing to prepare your team for an opponent. So it's important to do all those things. Another note on scouting is you have to understand the offensive and defensive concepts and strategies that people use that are common to your sport. Because if you don't, then you really don't even know what you're looking at when you're scouting. So it's important to try to learn, watch videos of a lot of different strategies and understand what's prototypical in your sport. If everybody is running this type of offense, you should probably find out how to beat that, and then tell your team that strategies, build some strategies to beat that in your practice plan. What are your skills required when you're scouting? You need to have some keen observation skills. You usually need to have some kind of scouting report form. You need to understand those various strategies, and then you need to synthesize information. You need to be able to critically think and visualize. That would be observe, that would be look at stats, possibly look at videos, and then take that information and put in a game plan for your own team. The higher the level, generally the more complicated this gets. At the JV level, I would scout so I would know what we were doing, and then we would talk about it a little bit in practice. Hey, the next team's going to do this, and we would work on our scheme for it. When I got to the high school level, we would show some videos of some other opponents, as well as have a short scouting report that I would hand them on paper. And then at the college level, it got really extensive. Little background on the recruiting process. If you want to get into the college game, you'll need to be able to recruit, because like my college coach used to say, you can't win the Kentucky Derby if you have 5 mules. You need at least 1 thoroughbred. So the lifeblood of recruiting or of college sports is recruiting. You're going to have new kids every year. At least a couple of kids are going to rotate and graduate off your team or transfer. So you're going to have to bring in new prospects. And it's important for you to then start understanding how to identify prospects. All right, that's the first part of recruiting. How do you identify them? Identifying prospects means, where do I find out about them? Do I find out about them online? Do I subscribe to a recruiting service and spend some money? Or have I networked and know other coaches and former players that can tell me about specific individuals? You might look at some stats online and some video and things like that for your initial identification, but you're usually going to want to talk to somebody that you know and trust, that has seen that player or maybe knows them pretty well. Next, you're going to move on to your initial evaluation. Like I said, this might be done through video. Video is very prevalent now. People post stuff on YouTube and different places, but it's very important to realize you're only going to see on video their highlights, what they did good. You're rarely going to see a full game and see them making mistakes. So it's important for you to go watch them at that point. If you like the initial evaluation, you hear good things, maybe you saw them in a tournament a few minutes here or there at the summer, you're going to see through that initial evaluation that, yes, I want to follow up. If that's the case, you move on to the secondary evaluation. You usually want to try to do this in an actual high school game setting so you can see what happens. You might also watch a practice setting to see how good of a teammate they are, how much effort they put on. Are they a leader? Are they a learner? Or do they just happen to be good enough because they're 6'3" and they're playing at a small high school and they're bigger than everybody? If through your secondary evaluation you recognize that they're not a suspect, they're a prospect, that's when the recruiting process actually begins. I had kids would confuse the evaluation process, which is 1, 2, and 3, with the recruiting process. They would say, oh, this big 4-year school's recruiting me. I said, are they really recruiting you, or have they come and watch you play to see if they're identifying you? So after number 3, it breaks into the recruiting process. This is where I would recruit everybody that could have an ear to the athlete. That would be them, their coach, their family, probably their summertime coach, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, even friends. Sometimes I'd send recruiting stuff to their girlfriend. So most of the recruiting used to be done by mail, but now it seems it's done more electronically, by email, by text messages, by calls. The best thing I could do is call and talk to a recruit. If you can have a conversation with them, that's great. You'll probably get a lot more text messaging in, especially with today's society. To be honest with you, I started my social media sites to be able to contact recruits that would change their phone number all the time or run out of minutes. So that you can do that through social media as well. So the recruiting process takes on a lot of different things, and you need to contact anybody that could help the player make the decision if they're going to come to your campus. Number 5 is your campus visit. I always like to pick up the player if I could from the airport, the bus station. If it was close enough, I could pick them up from home. If you had them on an overnight trip, I'd put them in a hotel and I'd actually go check in the hotel beforehand so they didn't have to deal with all that. And I would set up the room with some Gatorade, some information about our school, and I'll show you a little trick I had on the next page. I would like to also let everybody else on campus know the recruit was coming. So at one school, my president would meet with recruits. At another school, every time we were coming in on campus, the head of security would pull us over and then would show them the wanted poster that I'll show you on the next page, and then welcome them to campus and give us an escort to the gym. It was kind of corny, but it was anything you could do to make an impression with the athlete. Other tactics, you could have the locker room set up like game day, the number you know that they think they want. In the locker room, let them put on a jersey, take a picture of it, have them start texting it out. And then all of a sudden, they feel some connection to you. It looks like the recruiting process is going well. Then if you decide after the campus visit, you still like that player, different organizations have different rules. I always wanted them to play with my team at the junior college level. That was legal. And then I would get my team's impression of them. I would hang out with them for dinner, and then I would let them have some social opportunities with the team if they were spending the night. And then the next day I would call whoever their player host was on their visit in and try to find a little more background about them before we moved on to the offering of a scholarship. The number 6 part, offering a scholarship, some people do that on campus. Some rules don't let you do that then. When I offered a scholarship, I always tried to make a big deal about it. I did not want to do that on their visit. I told them I wanted to go home and think about it. I might tell them, hey, if we wanted to bring you in, would you want to come, especially if it was late in the game? So we would offer a scholarship, make a big deal about it. It's like signing a contract, get mom, dad, anybody else on the phone that might make the decision with them when we initially made the offer. And then always try to give a deadline. You don't want to make it like tell me now, but you want to give somebody a deadline of about 48 hours so they can sleep on it, talk to some people, but you don't want them to drag it out because you have some other prospects you're probably going to have to offer a scholarship to. I always told them when I put a deadline on, I had to protect the program, and they were my number 1 recruit in that position, but I had to get somebody in that position, so if it wasn't going to be them, I had to move on to somebody that wasn't as good. And they always like hearing how good they were. And number 7 is a signing. You'll have to see what you can do. Some associations let you be on campus when they sign. Some of them let you go to their signing press release. Some of them don't. So make sure you follow those rules. And if you can be there, try to be there because that's your first relationship building as they're becoming a part of the team. You may or may not be able to give them a t-shirt. You'll have to check if that's even legal with your organization. So you have to be careful and let people know on that. Here are a couple of my tricks. Right down here in the recruiting process, when I set up a room for somebody, I would print out with a picture of them and their name, a label, and put it on the Gatorade bottle. So I just put right here, Jamal Cox, future All-American, and I had his picture. He was one of my recruits out of Missouri when I was in Texas. So I would print out a couple of these labels. I'd put a couple Gatorade bottles in the refrigerator in the hotel room where they were spending the night, and then actually when we were playing with the team, when they came off the floor, we would hand them a Gatorade with their picture on it, and they would always get a big smile out of it. And then the kids that actually took the bottle, you knew were really, really interested. All right. Next is the wanted poster. I would do the old wanted dead or alive poster, but we didn't want them dead. By our family. I would put their picture, some information about them, and I would basically write up a press release like they were going to sign at our place. So they would see what we would do, what we knew about them, how they were going to fit in our system. We would have a coach's quote generally about them. And then we would hang these up at the hotel they were coming in. Like I said, at the one campus, our security chief pulled us over and handed this to him and said, "Hey, are you Jordan Harris? You're wanted." And then we would go on from there, and everywhere they would go on campus, they would see this poster hanging up. So they knew that we really were interested in them, and we wanted them to be part of our program. So those are a couple strategies you can use. Other times we played video of their high school clips on our video board when they walked in the gym. That is and isn't appropriate at some levels. It was okay at the junior college level. So now that we've got through all three of our coaching presentations, this one focusing in on our coaching philosophy, I wanted to explain your assignment. You're going to develop your coaching philosophy. It's a culminating summative assessment designed to detail a coaching philosophy statement and cover the learning you've had over the last 3 modules. What are you going to do? You're going to construct a well-written and thoughtful 2-page philosophy statement. You can consider this an essay or a small paper. All right, it's more than just a paragraph. It's 2 pages of thoughtful response. There's going to be different outlines based on if it's a coaching philosophy or a teaching philosophy. And look on the assignment guideline, but here's a sample outline. Paragraph 1, explain your philosophy and purpose. Number 2, how would you go about implementing and teaching your philosophy to your team? Number 3, what's your coaching style and methods and some things you're going to think that are important to your team, offensive and defensive? Number 4, what are some important concepts to you? Is it sportsmanship, ethics, integrity, community relationships? And number 5, what are your personal values or beliefs? That's a sample outline for this paper. When you go, and it's due Sunday, May 3rd by 8 p.m. Now, what you'll want to do when you get done with this video, you'll want to go to the page that says Coaching Philosophy page and read through that information. There are several documents you can download to read about building a philosophy and what should be involved in a philosophy statement. Consider that your textbook reading for the week. And then there's an outline based on whether you're an EDU student or a PEP student. Click on that to download and follow that outline for your paper. Like I said, make this well written, college level. Go back and proofread it. Try to put all the things into action you've learned over the last 3 weeks. And 3 modules over coaching, and that should be original work. You can't really copy and paste this from a website. All right, so that is your assignment, Coaching Philosophy. It's due Sunday, May 3rd by 8 p.m., and that probably is either that or your post-test is your last assignment. So I will wrap up our presentation today with our Module 15 assignments. One more reminder, and you can see these on the page 2, the information page for Module 15. Your final assignment was due Tuesday, 4/28, and that is based on how far you got in your observation, what you have to do. So if you got halfway through your observation, you'll write the observation reflection paper. If you got less than halfway, you will do 1 or 2 lesson plans and lesson videos, and I have already emailed you exactly what you're supposed to do for this final. So you'll be exempt from the other one. Whatever you have to do, that's what I'll grade, and the other one I'll exempt you. They're worth the same amount of points, so you get score for one or the other. And then the other one that won't count against you. Next is your coaching presentation quiz. It's due on Thursday, the 30th of April. It's a quiz online. Just go take the online quiz like any of our quiz and test. There's some integrity stuff built in. You can't go back. There's a time limit. You can't go back once you get to a question, and everything's randomized. But the information from our last 3 presentations are covered in that. So if you haven't watched the videos, go back and watch them. I just went over your philosophy development assignment. It is due on Sunday, May 3rd. Complete the assignment in Canvas. There's a lot of information and some background information for you to read. And then choose either your EDU. If you're a teaching major, you'll get to either do a teaching or coaching philosophy. If you're a wellness major, you're in the PEP version of this class, you do the coaching philosophy assignment. All right, and then finish your course post-test. It's identical to the pre-test. It is a quiz, and it has the same integrity information built in. There's a time limit. It's all randomized. You can't go back once you get started. And it is due Sunday, May 3rd as well. All these deadlines are 8 p.m. Try to meet, exceed the deadlines. You can always turn in things early. I hope you really enjoyed this class and these 3 coaching presentations in Module 13, 14, and 15. If you need anything, I'm only a click away. Hopefully you have a great day, and good luck on the rest of your finals.